Everybody hear me? Well, welcome everyone to what I hope is the first annual local government town hall. My name is Mark Marberry. I'm the Associate Commissioner of the 2nd District, and I'm going to be emceeing this event. And at this time, if we'll all stand and face the American flag and give the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for prayer. Genevieve, do you want to lead us in prayer?
Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for a country where us people can stand up and speak up and make a difference. And we just pray your blessings on our country and on our elected officials, that you guide them continuously and give them the guidance of your Holy Spirit at all times. And just be with us as we try to prosper and make our community a good family community and a good peaceful community. I thank you for everything you do for us, Lord Jesus. In Jesus' name I pray, and amen.
Amen. Be seated. To begin with, I want to thank you all for coming out. This is a nice crowd. When you start setting something like this up for the first time, you have no idea what kind of reception it's going to get. But I really appreciate this, especially on a kind of gloomy evening. I want to thank the St. Genevieve Chamber of Commerce, the University of Missouri Extension, and the St. Genevieve Local Access Television Station for their assistance in some matters on this meeting. The idea for this town hall is to provide transparency and access to your local government leaders. Do you know what we do? Do we know what we do? Do we know what you want? We're not really sure at times. And so the idea is to create transparency and to allow for a little more conversation and information both ways. It allows us to more directly inform you about state and local decisions, and in return directly listen to your concerns. The format will be that all featured speakers will give their presentations, and then after that we'll have an open question and answer session for whatever you have on your mind. As Commissioner of the 2nd District, I oversee an area south of the city of St. Genevieve, including the city of St. Mary, across to Minot, Kaufman, and back to Weingarten and Ozora. In my district this year, we've repaved Kaufman and Avon Road and did a chip and seal on parts of McDaniel Road. And at St. Mary, the historic Franklin Bridge had to be condemned because of failed footing. Unfortunately, we had to remove it. It's been sold through a sealed bid process to the Fisher family, and it's been moved to Bloomsdale to their fun farm, and eventually it will be put on display with some historical information included. As 2nd District Commissioner, one of my duties is being the floodplain manager for the county. The county is part of the National Flood Insurance Program. And even though the county does not have planning and zoning, a building permit is still required. And if a building of any nature is near a floodplain, it's up to me to determine if the building meets specifications. And you might think, well, so what? Well, the issue is if you have a loan or mortgage to build a home, you may be required to carry flood insurance. And if it's not to specifications that those rules, your insurance premiums could be very expensive. So that's one of my tasks. I also serve as liaison to the New Bourbon Port Authority, which includes the St. Genevieve Modoc Ferry. The Port Authority is its own governmental authority, but the county commissions, both St. Genevieve and Perry, appoint the board members. The port has just finished being dredged out. NextGen has started shipping frac sand from the Brewer Quarry before the dredging and will resume shipments after the finish of dredging. The ferry had been closed because of low water. It's back open, but I've been told that it may be closed again by the end of the week. That's the river going back down. So another one of my duties is liaison to the community center complex here. I coordinate with the board and employees to make sure that the government policies are followed properly and that make sure that the complex meshes smoothly with the courthouse administration. Currently, we're in the final stages, hopefully, of finishing the roof of the community center. I'm sure users of the community center are glad to see the buckets of rainwater go away. I assure you that we are too. And now at this time, I will turn the floor over to Karen Stupi, the Associate Commissioner for the 1st District, who will report on her responsibilities.
Hi everybody, welcome tonight. I'm happy to be here, happy that you all are here this evening to listen to us and as your local representatives and also your state representatives. If you don't know me, my name is Karen Stupi. I'm your 1st District Commissioner for St. John County. My district is more in the northern part of the county, Bloomsdale, Kinsey, some of the Zell area, and some parts of the western end of the county. I'm the liaison for the St. Genevieve County Fair Board, the Extension Council. I'm also the secretary for the Southeast Missouri Commissioners District. I'm also the liaison for the City Tourism Advisory Council. Some of the accomplishments thus far in my district, we had Smith and Westover roads were chipped and sealed on the western end of the county. There were box culverts that were installed on Ditch Road, which these residents, it's a dead-end road and they really have no access to getting out in emergency situations. So they finally have some box culverts that they can get out of there now if they're due to the flash flooding and high water. So I'm happy that those got put in for my residents out there in my district. We're also working on the box culverts for Misplay Road. There were a lot of improvements at the county fairgrounds. I don't know if you all attended the fair this year, but if you looked around, there was a lot of improvements to the fairgrounds. There was an addition made to the stockyard building. There were new bleachers put in the arena area. There were updates to the youth building. There were new windows put in, a new roof, new metal siding, a new HVAC system. Painting and soundboards were installed in the hall for the youth building. There was also improvements to the announcers booth in the arena area. We also partially chipped and sealed Hager Road. We also did an asphalt overlay on Fry Road. And we actually had a very successful fair this year. I don't know if anyone attended, we had huge crowds. We had perfect weather and it was a huge success. So kudos to the fair board. They did an amazing job and kind of proud of the fair this year and everything that's gone on the past couple of years. So kudos to them. Right now, we're just kind of checking our budgets to see if we can possibly chip and seal or overlay or asphalt any additional roads this year. But with all the rain and the flooding, we are not sure if we can do these projects with the added expense from the heavy rains and the flooding. So we're looking at our budget to see possibly what we can fit in before the end of the year. We're looking at next year's budgets to see which roads we want to try and overlay or chip and seal, or which roads we want to do continued maintenance on, because we have to maintain the roads we already have also. So I also want to, our road and bridge crew has been extremely busy, and they have been cleaning up our roads with all the flood related issues, cleaning debris and fixing roads so that people can get through. Hopefully they'll get caught up in the next few weeks and they can return to their normal duties. But I just want to give a shout out to them too. They've been working really hard this summer. And if you see them, just give them a thank you and, give them a pat on the back, because they have been working really hard this summer. We will continue to look into grants and funding opportunities for our county, for our roads and bridges, and anything else county related to improve our county. It's always a pleasure to serve my constituents. Please reach out to me with any questions or concerns you may have. I'm always happy to help, here to listen, try to do whatever I can to make our county a better place to live. All my information is on our county website at stjohncounty.org. You can go under the County Commissioners tab and our information is there. But if you want my personal cell phone number, I have cards tonight, but I will give them out. So, and you're all welcome to call me anytime. I don't care. I will take your phone call. So have a great night.
I want to clarify a little something she spoke about. Us being associates, I have District 2 and she has District 1. This is still all my county. It's still all her county. So if you're in District 1 and for some reason you need to talk to me, feel free. Because we overlap based upon availability, who can do what. This is our county. It's all ours. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna talk to you because you're in District 1. That would be just out of character there. So anyway, next up, Presiding Commissioner Randy Ruzicka will give an overall view of the county's governance.
Thank you, Mark. Great to see this full room here. This is fantastic. Glad everybody it's always good to see people take an active interest. And I'd like to thank Mark for spearheading this and for our partners at the state for joining us this evening. My two associates have covered a lot of things that have happened since January. I'm going to just, in addition to what they've said, I'm going to kind of give an overview of what the county commission does. Because I've actually had people ask me, well, what does a commissioner do? So, first and foremost, we just manage the affairs of the county, which at the top of the list are budgetary concerns. So every year we set an annual budget and we manage those expenditures based on the revenues that are coming in. Sometimes it requires adjustments along the way because tax revenues things are not always consistent, but we always have to stay within our budget, and everything we do has to be done by state statute. So any decisions we make, any expenditures we do, it all has to go by the legal statutes. We hold twice public meetings, which are open to the public. The media is usually there, and anybody is welcome to come in. Generally speaking, they're on Mondays and Thursdays from 8 until noon. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. All three of us are available 24/7 by phone. Anybody that has any concerns about anything, feel free to reach out. And it doesn't really matter what it is. A lot of times it's things that aren't even under our control, but we always try to steer people, guide people to wherever they need to go. In addition, during our meetings, that's where we process payments, any monies that have to go out. All that paperwork is double checked by us, then the checks are issued. Every time we have a meeting, we meet with our road and bridge foreman, who, again, I'm just going to veer off a little bit here. I have nothing but the highest praise of both Scott Schmieder and all the guys that work at the road and bridge. This summer has really tested everybody's patience with the weather and with everything that's going on, and Scott's always there. We work closely with them to make sure that we stay on track budgetarily and how our projects are proceeding, which also always have to be adjusted depending on weather, finances, and so on. Anything within the county that requires the bid process, we go by state statute, it's put out for bid, and then we review it, and the bids are awarded. Also under our jurisdiction is managing all the county properties, seeing that they're properly maintained. Anything that has to be done by outside service, we contact contractors, we have to put things out for bid. There's a lot that goes on. Over and above that, we are always in communication with our state partners and our federal partners because we do a lot of grants, applications for grants, and we're pretty successful. We've gotten some good ones lately. We work with the other elected officials in our building also to assure that the courthouse works as it should, because there is interaction between various other elected officials and departments, and we're always there to try to coordinate and help in any way we can. We also appoint people to local boards, and we're involved in that process. And of course, the daily communication with our constituents, always there to address their concerns. And as I said earlier, a lot of times it doesn't even fall under the heading of maybe something we're responsible for, but I'm always happy to make a phone call or direct somebody to where it needs to be, where it needs to go. And as Mark said, and that, it's all three of us together. And when I talk about this or anything else that I talk about, I want to make it very clear that we're a team. If anything I talk about, I'm not taking credit for it. It's the three of us together, in addition to our staff, that makes it all happen. So I am very blessed and fortunate to have a really good team, and that's what it takes to get stuff done. So, moving ahead, just a few accomplishments, and some of them may overlap what's already been talked about, but one thing that we're really proud of is we recently completed a refinance of the loans on the water park facility, which will net the county a savings of about $400,000 over the term of the loan. So we're real happy about that. We're always looking for ways to, save money, to try to get the most out of it. In the spring, we put on the ballot the 0.3% sales tax for the funding of the 911 system. And we held town halls, we went out, we talked to people, fielded questions, and we were very, very pleased that the voters accepted it wholeheartedly. And that's a really good thing, because 911, the funding of it had dwindled due to the dwindling of the landlines. That was what was funding it. So now, as this starts building up funds, we'll have adequate funding to continue to have a very, very good 911 system. Part of that required setting up a 911 board to manage the system. So it is now officially under the governance of a specific board, and that's by state statute. So that's all being handled. Touched on road and bridge. That's, like I said, those guys are just phenomenal. They do a great job. They're hard workers. We just recently, I don't think it's a secret to anybody how crazy the weather's been. And we just recently had a scenario where on the Ditch Road project, there was a flash flood. And our guys, along with a subcontractor, were in the bottom of a creek, about 10 foot below the ground level, and an 8-foot wall of water came down that creek in a matter of minutes. And we are really blessed that nobody got hurt. There was some damage to some machinery, which wasn't ours, but those guys kept right on working. They were soaked to the skin, everything else. The flood waters went down, they went right back to work. So, as Karen said, if you see them out, give them a thumbs up. Recently, there was we set up a board in conjunction with the county. It's called Resources to Recover. We are involved in it, and there was a class action opioid settlement that recently came down, and there are funds that are available. Long before we were involved, St. Genevieve County made a commitment to participate in that class action suit. And it was stipulated at the time that happened, that all of those funds that came to us, whatever they may be, would go towards the treatment and or to help anybody that suffers from opioid addiction. It's a terrible thing. It's not how has been portrayed. It can happen to anyone. And unfortunately, a lot of times people who need help either don't have insurance or they fall in a gap where insurance won't cover it. This is set up so that the folks that are in that situation can get some help. And big thanks to everybody that's involved, Dr. Potler and everybody that's on that board. We're real proud of that. Moving on, we continue to apply for grants. As Mark touched on, the Franklin Bridge in St. Mary, been there 100 years. The bridge itself was fine, but with this crazy weather and just Mother Nature and time, the banks failed. So the bridge was fine, but the bridge was getting ready to fall into the creek. So we removed it. As Mark said, it was sold, which recouped a little bit of money, and we are currently have applied for a grant with MoDOT. We'll see. It's pretty low traffic. I don't know if that'll come through or not. But we are always looking for that. Paving projects, sale of Franklin Bridge. We continue to process the 4th Street Bridge right by City Hall. Last year, the county was granted a flap grant, which is 100% ride in the state, and we're very very happy that that's progressing. It looks like that will take place probably in the next year. Remodel the fairgrounds. There's a lot of other stuff, but I probably should move on, so let our other guests speak. I am going to do one quick thing, though, before I stop. I am going to read a statement here, which we issued. There's been a lot of talk about SB 190. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, SB 190 basically amounts to a property tax rollback or break for senior citizens. Unfortunately, the language in it is such that it can't be implemented. The direction for it is not clearly spelled out. And Rick can elaborate on that, later on. It is what it is. Also, it will not affect your taxes this year anyway. It's not going to go in effect until the following year. So I'm just going to read the statement which we had issued on July 7th. The Commission wants its constituents to be assured that they take this legislation seriously and wishes to do the right thing in this matter. We will continue to monitor the situation as it unfolds. Unfortunately, the amendment to the existing statute is written vaguely and passed as to be essentially unworkable at this time. Any comments or positions taken about SB 190 would simply be speculative and subject to change. The Commission has had extensive discussions with the Assessor and Collector's Office, along with attorneys and professional organizations that deal with county issues. As currently written, SB 190 does not affect 2023 property taxes. Therefore, the Commission has determined that we are unable to take action and have an official position, as further clarifications will have to be undertaken by the state of Missouri before implementation with the openness of this legislation. There is also the likelihood of litigation, and which will further complicate and modify implementation. For any further questions on SB 190, constituents should contact their state legislatures. So I could go on, but I think I'll stop at this point, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, I think it's no mystery that agriculture is a major part of St. Genevieve County. Being along the river with high yield cropland and a lot of livestock being raised here, that it's a very big part of our economy and industry. As a farmer and big proponent of agriculture, Rick Francis lives in Perry County, has his own farm, raises some cows. Whenever I have discussions with him on occasion, that's one of the discussions we get to is how are things going out here as far as agriculture. Spent 33 years in education as a teacher, coach, and administrator, retiring from the Lindbergh School District after one of the school districts for his assistant superintendent of personnel. His committees, he's the chairman of the Rules Administrative Oversight Committee. He's a member of the Ethics, Financial Institutions, Legislative Review, Special Committee on Election Contests, Subcommittee on Appropriations, Agriculture, Conservation, Natural Resources, and Economic Development, and the Joint Committee on Agriculture. I wish you had something to do. Give a good welcome to our representative, Rick Francis.
Yeah, good to be with you. I'm going to repeat a couple of those things because I see some familiar faces and then some folks that I have not yet met. Unfortunately, I come to you as a senior, and in my last session, you can do 4 2-year terms in the House of Representatives. And so my first 6 years, I was state rep over Perry, Bollinger, and Madison. And then they had the redistricting after the census and so forth, and I was lucky enough to get St. Genevieve County, which I have spent quite a bit of time in this summer, doing a lot of visiting, learning a lot about the mining industry in St. Genevieve County, after some visits, and it's great again to be with you. I'm married forever, and we have 4 kids, and they're all grown and out of the house doing great things, so we're very lucky and fortunate that we also have 11 grandchildren. And Mark is right, we live on a farm just right across from Brewer, in behind Stark Truss, if you know where that's at. And we raise wheat, beans, corns, and we got 40 mama cows. And so that keeps Mama Chrissy pretty busy in the wintertime, feeding hay and creep feeding calves and so forth when I'm in Jeff City. So I couldn't do this without her support back home. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the bills that were passed in the legislative session in 2023. And I'm going to start off with Senate Bill 190. Thank you for leading me into that. It is good. There's parts of it that's good to great, and there's some of it that needs work. And so let me kind of go over that, and I made some notes, so I'm going to make sure I get this right. The good part of Senate Bill 190 is it creates a tax relief to Missouri's older population. It will eliminate the state income tax on Social Security benefits. That's the key. It will eliminate state income tax on Social Security benefits. It will allow seniors, regardless of their income. So it doesn't matter, some other states have different levels, and so not in Missouri. It won't matter how much you make, you're going to get to deduct 100% of your Social Security benefits. So that's the good part. And just FYI, Missouri is one of only 11 states in the country that still taxed Social Security. So the 39 states that were not taxing Social Security are not, but some of them had different levels where if you made over $50,000 of adjusted gross income, then you paid 50% of your taxes, but ours will not. With the rising cost of consumer products that we all have noticed, it's probably more important now than ever that we put money back in the pockets of Missourians, especially those that are on fixed incomes. Now, the part that is concerning, the part that has problems, as Randy said, it was not written clearly, and thank goodness that we have time to fix that. I actually had a fix on this. I put an amendment on 3 different bills that would have fixed this part of it, but none of those got passed because of a senator named Senator Eichel that filibustered, and those 3 bills that I had amendments on to fix it did not get through. Just going to speak plainly, as I always do. This bill effectively freezes the property tax on the homes of Missourians who are 65 years or older. It will allow counties, and this is the concerning part, because it was up to the counties if they wanted to adopt an ordinance that authorized the property tax credit for eligible senior homeowners. The bill would in fact ensure seniors don't pay more in property tax than what they did. So once they turn 65, if you pay $1,000 property tax, then that's all you're going to pay in the future. Next year, $1,000. Next year, $1,000. Next year, $1,000. It's just not going to. It's going to freeze it at whatever rate you had when you turn 65. Well, that's a lot of lost income to the counties and so forth. So that's one of the things we're going to go back and take a look at. So you may have questions about that later. I'm going to move on to the SAFE Act, Senate Bill 49, and Senator Gann may repeat some of these. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes here. But this protects Missouri's children from unnecessary and harmful sex change, drugs, and surgeries. The SAFE Act would prohibit healthcare providers from performing gender transition surgery on young people under the age of 18. I know you've heard of it, a growing crowd, it seems, of those that are boys that want to be girls, and those who are girls that want to be boys. And they were doing this at 11, 12, 13 years of age. So whether you agree with me or not, I voted to stop that, and that we should not have children undergo these surgeries until they become 18 years of age. At least at 18, I think they have this is not against transgender people. This is just to make sure that they, are are grown up and have all the knowledge and so forth for them to make their own decision. Next, we passed Senate Bill 39, which is fairness for our female student athletes. And this bill prohibits a private school, a public school district, a public charter school, or public or private institution of post-secondary education, so all of our high schools and our colleges, from allowing any student to compete in athletic competition designated for the opposite sex, as determined by your student's official birth certificate. So if you are a girl, then you get to play on girl sports. If you're a boy, then you play on the boys' sports. We're not doing any of this locker room stuff. And so that is now state law. Everything I'm telling you here is passed the House, passed Senate, been signed together, and it will become law August 28th. So. House Bill 417 will help employers develop and retain skilled workers. How many times have I heard about, employers needing this skilled worker and can't find them? So we're going to give some grant money. It's going to be administered by the Department of Economic Development to reimburse employers who help their employees. Programs would include things like manufacturing technology. With that would be hydraulics and pneumatics and cybersecurity, welding, certified nursing assistants, HVAC, just to give you some examples of some of the things that if employers can't find that employee, then we're going to help them with some money to upskill their credentials and bring through all our own Army. So, that was House Bill 417. Senate Bill 94 looks to attract some revenue generating. We have never incentivized film and movie entertainment. When you probably heard of this series called Ozark. It's a Netflix series all about Missouri. But where's it filmed? Just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Because Georgia has a little bit of a tax credit, tax incentive, and so forth, which the state would make money in the end, but because we never had any incentive, this bill will allow some incentives. I won't get into the details, but basically that's what it does. Along with that, attached in Senate Bill 94 was also to bring more music industry dollars to the state by authorizing credits for rehearsal and our tour expenses and associated rehearsals. There's already a building being built right now in Chesterfield, huge. If you're driving towards the river, it's on your left, where bands, I can't remember, I heard some popular bands and so forth that are planning on rehearsing there, and they do their all of their preparation and so forth for them to go out on tour. What songs they're going to play and so they rehearse, they practice there, and when they do, they are required to do 2 concerts in the state of Missouri. We're just not going to rehearse here and go someplace else. They're going to have to do 2 concerts in the state of Missouri, but it's all about bringing in revenue to the state. So I think that is a good bill. Senate Bill 94. See if you like this one. House Bill 115, expanding access to physical therapy. Currently, to go to physical therapy, you have to go to your doctor to get a note, referral, to go to a physical therapist. And physical therapy now requires a doctorate. To be a physical therapist today, you have to go and have go through a doctorate program to become that. And so we've changed that. Doctors may not be happy, but the patients will now have direct access to physical therapy. This legislation will allow physical therapists with a doctorate of physical therapy and 5 years of clinical experience to evaluate and initiate treatment on a patient without a prescription or referral from their healthcare provider. So hopefully that will also help on the cost, because it was costing you something to go to the doctor to get that referral. And then on top of that, not only time, but money as well. I know Senator Gann's going to talk about postpartum, so I'll skip over that. Distracting drivers, Senate Bill 398. will prohibit the use of electronic communication devices while operating motor vehicles. Current Missouri law bans texting while driving for anyone under the age of 21. Well, now it will be for everyone. You cannot hold an electronic device, make any communication on a device, search online, watch a video or movie. Can't imagine doing that. But, the penalty will be a fine. But here's the real catch. If a driver will be charged with a felony if they kill somebody while driving and improperly using a cell phone. That's the handler in that bill right there. Vehicle tax sales, Senate Bill 398, simply states that the licensed motor vehicle dealer will collect in sales tax on motor vehicles. It is the only tax in the state of Missouri where you don't pay the tax right there at the vendor. With our vehicles, you know, we've always had to go to the license bureau and pay our sales tax and so forth. No longer. When you get a vehicle, here's the way the process is going to work. You go to the dealership, you'll do all the paperwork, you will leave with a temp tag, but that will start the ball rolling for the Department of Revenue to issue your plates, and you will receive them in the mail. But you're going to pay your taxes at the dealer. Then, a couple things about funding. We have fully funded school foundation formula. That's the formula where, based upon students and so forth, you know, so much money goes to St. Genevieve, so much money goes to Perryville, so much money goes to Lindbergh, you know, and so forth, the foundation formula. When I got to the State House, 2016, the legislature had never, ever fully funded this foundation formula 2 years in a row. We have now funded it 7 years in a row. And along with that, we've also been able to raise our school transportation taxes to fully funding, which is 80%. So St. Genevieve schools, for the miles they get reimbursed, they're now getting 80 cents for every $1 that they're putting in to the bus routes and so forth to pick up kids. So that's a big help, because they were getting around 17, 18 cents per mile. So that's a huge increase. Hopefully that funnels into the classrooms as well. I have heard, read, we are going to expand I-70 to 3 lanes all the way across the state. There's controversy. There are some people who want money to be spent on I-44. I sent a letter to the governor and to MoDOT commissioner saying, what about, we have no east-west corridor from the Chester Bridge. You know, why out some money there going across 72 and so forth. But I think all that fell on deaf ears, but I wanted to express my opinion. I'm not opposed to I-70, but we have some transportation needs down here as well. Then a couple of bills, hold on, I'm not going too long. These are bills that I sponsored and have been sponsoring for the last 5 or 6 years, because government moves slow. A lot of times you introduce a bill and you work it and it goes through committee and it gets, you know, changed a little bit and you get it a little bit farther the next year and so forth. Well, we've been having a lot of ATM smash and grabs in our state. It's continually increased. Now research has led me to believe it's organized crime coming out of Houston. It's not your average Joe walking down the street. Oh, there's an ATM. I think I'll, you know, smash it, throw it back in my truck, and run out of the country and break into it and steal. And they average about $30,000. But it never had a defined penalty. One prosecutor would say destruction of public property. Another one would say stealing. And the prosecuting attorneys would put this changes that, and it makes it very specific that it's felony. Not only to smash and grab it, but also to put these skimming devices on there. You probably heard where we got sophisticated where they can, when you put your card in, it's skimming it, stealing your information. So we made it a felony and kind of followed what was happening in Texas and Arkansas. And once it goes into effect here, hopefully they'll move on to Illinois. So I passed the uninsured motors bill. Did you know that 1 out of every 7 vehicles you need is an uninsured motorist? 1 out of 7. And our courts are inundated with insurance companies or motorists filing suit against the uninsured, trying to recoup, some of their damage. I mean, the Prosecuting Attorney Association just upped their eyeballs, and so they were behind this bill. And now we've created an online verification system because insurance companies every 3 months are sending to the Department of Revenue in Jefferson City, here's, Rick Francis, Lane Gann, and Mark Mayberry, here's who we have insurance with. And so they have that information. We just needed to match it up with a VIN number. And so you can match that and you can tell who has insurance. And it's going to be you're not going to have to carry that insurance card around with you anymore. Stolzer back there can look it up on his communication device and be able to tell whether you have insurance or not. And so hopefully by doing that, the 14% of Missourians that don't have insurance will say, gosh, I better pay for insurance, because that's what the state law says. If you're going to drive on Missouri roads, you have insurance. So we passed that one. Had an ag omnibus bill that passed. I always love working with agriculture. I won't go into the details. One of them I really liked was 12 scholarships. That if you're willing to go out into rural Missouri and do large animal veterinarian work, then we'll help you a lot with your scholarship to get through. But then we're in need of large animal veterinarians. Some of the funding, then we get $2.3 million for Mayfield College in Marble Hill, $7 million for the Veterans Memorial Wall in Perryville. Back to agriculture, I talked to the ASCS office of St. Jan Soil and Water, and there are no-till drills. They charge Red Farm, but when they get to the end of the life of that no-till drill, they don't have enough to replace it. And so I was able to get a $7,500 grant for counties, at least help a little bit to replace their no-till drills. I had $3.5 million in for the Perry County Justice Center. It was vetoed by the governor. I also had the Missouri Dinosaur Museum here in St. Genevieve, $500,000, and that was vetoed as well. But I'll keep working on that. Just a couple things. I don't want to stand up here and say, well, we did all this great stuff. There was stuff that was left on the table that we should have got passed. Initiative petition should have got passed. The House had it teed up on the floor last few days, and Senator Igo decided he was going to hold it up for ransom. And if my things don't get passed in St. Charles, then I'm not going to pass what's good for the rest of the state. So with our initiative petition being that it's only going to take 50%, so things like Medicaid, medical, recreational marijuana, those things have been put on the ballot and passed. What do you think we're going to put on there next? Abortion. Making abortion legal. It was critical that we passed this year's petition. That sucker letter died right there. I can't emphasize how frustrating it is to work a whole session and have one person be able to kill stuff like that. Also, along with 340B prescription drugs, you're going to start seeing your drug prices increase because we didn't get it passed. But, like I said, never move slow, so we just have to keep working at it. Be looking forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
About a month and a half ago, we were standing in this room, and I asked her, "Do you want to speak at this?" He said, "Sure, you want me to speak at this?" And I said, "It's okay, it'll work." Elaine Gannon, our state senator, she lives in DeSoto. She taught junior high physical education and coached in DeSoto Public Schools. Her and her husband Dennis, who is the county executive for Jefferson County, talking about power couple there. Yeah. Kind of it sounds like it's a story about me, but it's not. When I was appointed to this position by Governor Parson, I had to go to Jefferson City to face the Senate committee on gubernatorial appointments to be approved. I went up there a day early to meet members of the committee. That's a recommendation, and it's a good idea, so that they can at least put a face to them and go meet them. And of course, being my senator, Miss Elaine took me around the Capitol to meet several of these members of this committee. Of course, both parties, Democrat and Republican, run the committee. And it struck me there was a common saying when we were around there, and I meet these people. Something along the lines of, I take your word on him, Elaine, or Elaine, if he's good enough for you, he's good enough for me. I think that's a good commentary on someone's character when both sides of the aisle takes her word on someone. Just means I fool people real easily, apparently. But anyway, but I think it's a good commentary on someone's character when they would tell her that, again, Democrat and Republicans, that her word was good. She's on the Computer Science Education Task Force, Missouri Assistive Technology Advisory Council, Standing Committees of Education and Workforce Development, Emerging Issues, Health and Welfare, Local Government and Elections, she's the chair of that, Veterans, Military Affairs, and Pensions. Statutory committees, Joint Committee on Education, Joint Committee on Legislative Research, and Joint Committee on Legislative Research Personnel Subcommittee. Please welcome Ms. Elaine Gay.
Well, it's good to be here this evening. Thank you for having me, and a special thank you to Mark and the others that worked together to make this evening possible, and thank you to all of you for coming out this evening. I absolutely love St. Genevieve, and when I decided to run for the Senate, your representative at the time, Representative Dale Wright, called me, and we talked, and he was gracious enough to bring me down here. How many times? We came down here so many days. He knocked doors with me, took me to a different restaurant for lunch each day we were here, and you have a lot of good ones. And to meet the owners and business people, it was great. He took me around and introduced me to those of you that work in government here, and you just have a really great community. I believe it was early last week on a Monday, I came down and I toured Mississippi Line. That was my first time to do that, and what a great tour. It was about 2 hours, and went underground, and I was a little bit taken back when we reached a certain point, and the driver said, "Now Oberly Meats is right above us," because I love to go to Oberly. You know, if this would have been earlier in the day, I would be stopping at Oberly Meats. But you have a great community here that swim, or what is it, the water park. There you go. Oh, I loved that. And then the rest of everything else that goes with that. I've been in all those buildings. The ball fields are absolutely beautiful. What an asset. And I went back to DeSoto, and I'm like, you know, I think DeSoto's bigger than St. Genevieve. If they can do that, why can't we? And DeSoto has made some efforts to try and head in that direction, and a few things successful on and a few things not. But you just have a great community here, and the people are all just really good people. Well, the final gavel fell on May 12th to signal the official ending of the 2023 legislative session. While debate was contentious at times, especially in the Senate, I believe it was a productive successful 5 months in Jeff City that resulted in positive outcomes for all Missourians. And you heard some of them already that Representative Francis talked about. So, but I filed numerous bills. In fact, I found out at one point that I filed the most. I thought, oh, I didn't really realize that. But anyway, I did file a lot of bills. And first and foremost, I'm grateful to have ushered Senate Bill 45 across the legislative finish line. This was a priority bill for Governor Parson and also the President of the Missouri Senate. Right now, Missouri has the sixth highest maternal mortality rate in the country. Also right now, low-income women in the state of Missouri who is pregnant, delivers a baby, and from the day they deliver the baby, they only receive 2 months or 60 days of postpartum care. Senate Bill 45 will extend that postpartum care to 12 months for these low-income women. Some of the many illnesses that can and do continue way past the 2 months time are things such as anxiety, depression, overweight, or weight loss, heart disease, fatigue, hair loss, and that's just a few. So I think we all know that if we want healthy babies, we need to have healthy mamas. And right now, Senate Bill 45 is awaiting the governor's signature. Well, he's already signed a lot of these bills, but he's going to do a ceremonial signing on some of the bills. And this is one of the bills. He will come to Jefferson County. I've requested that he come to Mercy Jefferson in Festus. I serve on that board, and do a ceremonial signing, and I believe that's going to happen the end of September. So I look forward to that. I also had 7 other bills that made it across the finish line as amendments that were attached to other bills, and I'm not going to talk about all of those, but the one that I would like to mention, I thought this might surprise some of you, if not most of you. How many of you have heard of the term patient boarding? Okay, well, I see 2 hands, okay? Well, when I was presented this bill 2 years ago to Carrie, and I looked at it and I read it and I thought, oh, that can't be. That's not happening, surely. Well, you know, I did a little investigating and checking, and my chief of staff checked around, and sure enough, this was definitely a problem. So we'll talk about it right now. Sometimes when a foster child enters a hospital, okay, or it might be an adult with disabilities, and they enter the hospital for a health issue, when it comes time to release them, there's nowhere for them to go because foster family doesn't want them back for whatever reason, okay? And we know that in the state of Missouri, we do not have enough foster homes. We just don't have the foster parents like we need. So what happens is the child stays in the hospital. They're schooled in the hospital. They might be there a year. They might be there a year and a half. Okay? So, this bill puts a plan in place. Now, is this going to solve everything? I think we're going to have to carry this bill further, another session. So this is the beginning stages. This bill puts a plan in place to bring the involved stakeholders together. That would be the people up here in the state, okay? And design a sustainable solution to identify the gaps and apply resources where and when necessary to address this issue. And when I got to checking around with different hospitals, like Mercy Jefferson, right up there in Festus, guess what? They boarded patients. They've had to deal with it also. So it is an issue. So I'm happy that that passed, and we'll see where we can take that. Now, the representative here, he talked about the transgender bills, and I will say that probably the beginning of May, and the Senate finished the transgender bills first. But the House hadn't gotten it done yet, and it was very early in May, I believe, and boy, the governor, he put out a message, and he said, if I don't get a transgender bills on my desk before this session is over, first thing I'm going to do is call the entire legislature back the first week after session ends. Well, he meant business, so we got it done. And Representative Francis explained the bills, and I would just like to say that I have served on the committee for 3 years, maybe all 4 years in the Senate. I've served on the committee that hears these bills. Oh boy, what a sight. So I'll just kind of give you a little indication of what transpired this year after what had happened up at Washington University. So we get there, we know it's going to be a big deal, and the TV stations are there. They've got their cameras set up inside the committee room. The room is packed, and outside the room is packed. And what we do when we've got people outside wanting to testify, once somebody finishes testifying, then we ask them to leave so somebody else can come in. So over 2 hours worth of time, we pretty much heard everybody. We might have been short 6 or 8 people, but we pretty much heard all of them. But it was really sad because there was a girl that was 21 or 22 that stepped up to testify, and she was a little petite thing and real pretty. She had a little skirt on, a white top and necklace, and she said that she had some emotional problems when she was a younger teenager, and she decided maybe she wasn't a girl, and she kind of went with that, okay? And long story short, at age 16, she had both breasts removed. And she had them removed because she was as flat as this piece of paper. It was very obvious. How sad was that? And she was there testifying in support of this bill, okay? And so that's the type of testimony that we got that day. And so when we came back, I guess the next time we met and we voted, of course we voted to support the bill, and it went to the floor. And that was one of our all-nighters, okay? We were there all the way around the clock on this bill till the next morning. And one of our Democrat senators out of Kansas City, he's gay, a very, very sharp, nice guy, I consider him a friend. He considers me a friend. But we did not disagree, or we did not agree on this issue. And he was determined to keep this debate going as long as the small number of Democrats that serve in the Senate could handle it. And so this was like 2 days before we were coming home for spring break. And so we decided, the majority in the Senate, we decided to hold off until after spring break and come back, and that would be the first thing we would take up. And that's what happened. And when we came back after spring break, sure enough, when we got to the floor, that's the first thing we did. And the debate went on a little bit longer. But long story short, when we took that vote, the bill passed. So then Senator Rader out of the Boot Hill, she carried the sports one where males could not participate in the girls' sports or compete against girls or with girls. As Representative Francis said, dealing with the locker rooms and the restrooms and the whole bit. And like Mark said earlier, I'm a retired PE teacher and coach, and oh man, all I could see was me in that position. And I thought, you know what, if they told me I had to do this, I was walking out the front door. I was going to be done. But I didn't have to experience that. But so I was happy to see that passed also. So we got to take care of our kids. And like Representative Francis said, if when they get to 18 and they want to pay for that and do that, then I guess there's go ahead and do it. But not our kids. Not our kids. Okay. Let's see. He talked about the school funding, foundation formula, transportation. I won't go into that any. Okay, so I was able to help secure, along with the other Jefferson County legislators, I was able to help secure $25,000 for the Jefferson County Port. That situation is moving along. It's a big priority of my husband's. He's worked relentlessly on that, and it has made progress during his term, and hopefully we'll see more progress as the next 3 or 4 years come along. Some of you, if not most of you, have probably heard that Jefferson County in Crystal City, we're getting a James Hardy company. And James Hardy is the Hardy board siding that probably a lot of you have on your house. And it's top quality. And if you know where the airport is in Crystal City, the airport is no longer there. That property has been bought out by James Hardy, and that is where their company will be built. They will employ, probably starting off, 250 people. Good jobs. Looking at probably $80,000. And that is a definite. That is going to happen. Okay? One of the things that they have to do is they have to build a bridge from some point there where the company's going to be, the road in front, a bridge over to Interstate 55. Okay? So that the trucks, and there's going to probably be a couple hundred a day, if not more, going in and out of the James Hardy Company. And so the governor came down to Crystal City back early in session, and there was a big kickoff, and James Hardy people were there, and Jefferson County's pretty excited about that. So if you're looking for siding and you want James Hardy, their company's going to be right there in Jefferson County. So we're pretty excited. I want to thank you for inviting me to be here this evening, and come visit us in Jefferson City, okay? I'm on the 4th floor in the Senate, and you can visit both of us in the same day and get a tour of the Capitol, and maybe go all the way up to the top and go outside and that overlooks the city. It's absolutely beautiful. So again, thank you for having me.
Okay, we're going to change kind of how we do things right now, the format. We're going to take a 2 or 3 minute break. We've got to move around a little bit of equipment here. So if you want to get up and stretch your legs or get your raw paints and tomatoes ready to throw at us, tar and feathers ready, this is time to do it. So just give us a couple, 3 minutes. Okay, we'll go into the question and answer session. Everybody has a chance. If you've got a question, now Dale Wright, he doesn't get to speak. He doesn't represent us anymore, so you don't get to talk, but otherwise. Anyway, so this is basically open. If you have a question, and I'd like to, let's kind of keep this limited. If you have 1 or 2, that's fine, but let's not get too many. We want everybody who has a question to get up. If you have a question, come up to the microphone. You want to go ahead and start doing that. 1 or 2 questions. It's for any of us. Any of us. Just name who you want to talk to, and we'll hand the mic.
Is this one turned on? And it is. I could take over now if you want to step aside there.
Okay.
I just got 2 questions because I missed Andy Griffith twice tonight, so I won't take up too much time for these people. But Randy, as the Republican Central Committeeman, the question that I could ask a lot is how much debt is the county in when they, Gary Nelson, the best I recall, said whenever they decided to put in the water park, he said it's hard to borrow $10 million when you're already $15 million in debt. And I was assuming the $15 million is when they put up this building. So how much in debt are we though?
I don't have an exact figure for you, Kenny. That was a long time ago. It's been paid down substantially. I'm not going to quote a number here because it wouldn't be correct. It's nowhere near that. My guess.
Well, you mentioned you saved $400,000 on
that was on interest. That was
Yeah,
on interest
so
on
you got
$10 million loan.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not going to give you an exact number. It's nowhere near. It's nowhere near that. It's somewhere in the range of $10 million. Okay. And that's overall over the whole county.
Okay.
Okay.
And then my next comment is to these, to Rick and Elaine. And a few years ago, there was an effort to bulldoze down the rest areas, and they would make just truck parking areas and bulldoze down the nice buildings and put in outhouses for our truckers to use. And the truckers pay a large amount of taxes, and they deserve a nice building. I stood protest down at Cape at a MoDOT meeting, and I was amazed how many people come up to support our efforts to save the rest area here in Bloomsdale and the ones in Jackson. And Channel 12 at first wasn't interested in interviewing us, and once they seen how much it stirred up when we protested their meeting down in Cape, they said, Mr. Williams, we'll meet you wherever you want to meet. We want your story. We met up here at the Bloomsdale rest area, and then I got to talk with the board of directors of MoDOT, and we saved our rest area, and it's really a nice rest area. But the one on the southbound side, they bulldozed it down, put in a weigh station, and then they put in outhouses for our truckers to use there. And there was a pipe going under and a septic there already, But the nice building on the right-hand side was saved because we made an issue of it. So I guess in saying all this, do you guys ever address the issues of making enough commercial truck parking for these guys? They deserve a nice building to go potty in when they want to park. They got to be parked for what I understand, 10 hours at a time. They could drive for 11, they got to be parked 10 hours. And we need a nice place for them. So protect our rest areas is what I'd like to say. Thanks.
Well, we neither one have any idea. I will say that maybe because of that, I mean, now you got the Loves there at Bloomsdale, and they're putting in the Loves up there at what? Yeah, but, I guess maybe that's one of the
So
reasons.
Rick, I was informed they charge the truckers to stay parked there, is what I was told today. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but that's what I was told. And they make a lot of money for them trucks just sitting there.
So was that MoDOT's idea to tear
Yes.
that down?
Yes, it was. And MoDOT, whenever I went to the meeting, it was interesting. The MoDOT people come to me begging me not to point them out as the problem. So when I spoke, the chair lady of the meeting, whenever I stated my issue, she turned to the head guy and said, I like them rest areas. What's going on? And he said the rest areas is the most visited spot in the state of Missouri. And we got vending machines there and advertisement things there. But he admitted it's the most visited spot in the state of Missouri. That was MoDOT tearing down our rest areas and putting in outhouses.
Well, this is the first I've heard of it.
Can I just, the
Yes.
next point, that was a huge boon for our county and for our city here, because there was a lot of information given out there. So when you pull into a rest area, a lot of the tourists and visitors, they got a lot of information about the surrounding areas, and we lost that opportunity to educate them about what we have here. So to Kenny's point, it was a big loss for our community when we lost that rest area.
Wow.
Thanks for sharing.
Just one thing real quick, sir, before you start. Kenny, something that I forgot to mention, in the process of that refi, when we went through that process, which took several months, originally when the first loans were gotten, the county didn't even have, it had a credit rating, but it didn't have a letter rating. Because of the way our payment record and because of our debt ratios and whatnot, we're now at an A+. Obviously, the highest you could have is a AAA. But things are better. Okay.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for showing up tonight. All of us, I'm sure, are really appreciative of it. This is specifically directed toward you, Representative Elaine Gannon, but also open for comment. So some citizens of the state of Missouri may be aware, some may not, that abortion is still legal in the state of Missouri. At-home abortion. Clinics are closed. Recently, on May 3rd of this year, Missouri SB 356, which is actually the complete abolition of abortion in Missouri, was heard and unfortunately died within its hearing. Those that spoke for this bill, of course, were abolitionists, given the name. Those that spoke against, many would be surprised to be pro-life organizations, like that of Missouri Right to Life. The bill actually defines what abortion is: miscarriages, coercion, and willful malice. It upholds God's standard of innocent until proven guilty. And so much more within the bill's language that anyone who would actually read the bill, they would have no moral justification for opposing it before God, for opposing what the bill stood for. So mainly my question is this: why would someone that proclaims to be a Christian and is in a leadership position that has been granted to them by God and is to be a servant of God by rewarding those that do good and by punishing those that do evil, as stated in Romans 13, why would this person be complacent with the punishment of those that have done no evil, namely the death penalty for the unborn? Because we don't just merely kill people based on inconvenience, size, level of development. location? That's my question.
So, I'm trying to think, I think we had a bill maybe heard in committee for that, am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes, amongst many others, but yes.
Do you remember what committee it was heard in?
It was the Health and Welfare on May 3rd.
Okay. Do you know who carried it?
It was sponsored by Moon. The ones that I know for certain that were for it were, of course, Moon, Carter, and Raider.
Raider. Okay. But it never made it to the floor, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my head around when this was. So are you saying then that, was this bill saying that if a woman went across state line and had an abortion and came back to Missouri?
No, it was talking about within specifically the state of Missouri. And they would abolish abortion whatsoever. So no at-home abortion, because that is still legal in the state of Missouri. There's no clinics open in Missouri.
Right.
But they can still order something online or have a doctor prescribe them something and it comes to their house.
Okay.
They can go pick it up
Okay,
and have it done at home.
And then are you saying that if they have an abortion that way, then that person that had the abortion should be considered a criminal?
Considered murder, yes,
That's
because that
what I
is
thought.
life in the womb.
Yeah.
Unless they are coerced. And the bill actually defines what that is. It defines, like I said, the difference between coercion and willful malice. Because if a woman is coerced into it, she is not guilty. It'll be the one who coerces her. They'd be considered the murderer.
I'm pro-life. I supported the doing away with abortions in the state of Missouri. I think that if a woman somehow finds a way to have that an abortion, gets a pill somehow, whatever, at that point, no, I do not agree that woman should be considered a criminal.
What about the mother
I
that murders her
think-
2-year-old?
I think
It's the same
we
thing.
should love that woman
And what about the child?
that she aborted,
The one that she murdered, yes.
the one that she aborted. Well, it's sad. It's
But is it
definitely
evil?
sad. Yeah, it's evil.
But it's not murder.
Well, you know what? It's something that happened, and
So the
I
mother that
think
murdered her 2-year-old, that just happened?
the mother that murdered a 2-year-old.
Yes. It's
And
the same thing, it's
where's-
still life. A life in the womb is
Yeah.
no different
No,
than
no,
a life outside. The
I
only
see
difference
where
is
you're coming
size,
from.
location,
I see
level of
now.
development.
I see where you're coming
difference.
from, but I agree with Missouri Right to Life that in those situations, we need to love that mother. We
But
need
not the
to.
child.
Well, if a mother murders a 2-year-old
Mhm.
or we've heard about that, happening before, murdering 3 kids.
Right.
All of them driving off into the lake and they're all dead.
All of
Mom
the
and
evil?
all the kids.
Yes.
But if a parent, mother or father, murders their child,
Mhm.
then that is a crime.
It's considered murder.
Yes.
In all cases.
I'm just saying where I stand.
So you don't agree with God? Because God says
I'm a
that from the moment of
Christian.
conception, a child.
I'm a Christian. I have discussed this issue with my minister. Now that I know where you're coming from, it's all starting to come back to me now. That we have to, you know, it might be a 16-year-old girl that took that pill. It might be a 21-year-old woman that took that pill that maybe's no money, no job.
In the case of rape, so who should we deal out justice? The child or the father?
In the case of rape,
If a man rapes a woman, who dies justly?
well,
Enacted out by the state.
Hey, Mark, this is turning into a debate instead of a question.
yes.
You're gonna take
And
this
I
on.
gave my opinion, and
Okay,
if you
well, I
want to
ask
hear
of
from
you to
somebody
repent
else,
before God.
pardon?
I ask of you to repent before God, and so do all the churches that believe the Word of God.
Okay.
Okay, see ya.
We appreciate the state, appreciate your comment.
Actually, the church created that.
You know,
The church created that.
it's a question that causes you to think a little bit. But
It is.
I would not, I am pro-life, I'm against abortion, but that to me is a bridge too far to have a mother be brought up on charges for murder. Couldn't do that.
Even if it's underneath willful malice.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we, at this point, we agree to disagree. You've brought up your points. You were eloquent in your presentation. Elaine has done her best to answer it. It may not be the answer you want. We're gonna have to move on to the next
That's fine.
participant. Thank you.
I'll respect the time.
Okay,
You guys have a great evening.
thank you.
Sir.
Good evening, and I have something that's a little more, not so
I'm sorry.
controversial. So, Josh Gettinger, I'm the Board of Education here. I see a couple board members here, Mrs. Martha Reesinger, Mr. Dave Bova, and Ms. Jerry Diesel. I just want to thank Rick and Elaine for, you mentioned this, the Foundation Formula and Funding Transportation. That amounts to $1.125 million for transportation for St. Genevieve and $2.35 million for the Foundation Formula. It's a little under $3.5 million going back into our classrooms from state funding. So thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Bill.
Thank you.
I'd just like to know where we stand on this ordinance, the case on the ordinance. Is there a court date set to hear that yet, or on the sand mine?
On the sand mine, I can't really go into any details on it because it is in litigation. The answer to your question would be, basically right now, it's in a holding pattern. It is my understanding that NextGen has voluntarily withdrawn at least one of their permits. I think it's their water permit. Other than that, I honestly know nothing. Everything is stopped. There's not been any communication from them. So, you know, it's in a holding pattern. So,
Sir, you want to say what your position is on it?
Well, I'm one of the landowners.
Okay.
We're definitely for it.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Locke, and the one thing I wanted to ask you, and first of all, thanks for providing, or at least trying to provide funds for the Missouri National Veterans Memorial. I'm involved a little bit in that. I'm a volunteer down there one day a week. I've been doing it for about 4 years. I'm a Vietnam vet myself. But one of the things that I asked of the director of the National Memorial down there is that you were able to supposedly get $3.5 million that's going to be distributed over the next 2 years. I talked to them, and they're confused as what are the mechanics with regard to actually putting everything in motion such that that money can be distributed to I think they're not quite sure on that. So right now there's some scratching of heads and questions being asked with regard to, okay, this supposedly is available, and it is a part of the 3 items that are part of the Department of Public Safety section. 2 the section 1 and section 3, I think, were vetoed by the governor, but this one is still there with regards to the distribution of those monies and the the county of Perry County and Perryville meet evidently the stipulation with regards to population, such that those monies can be indeed received. So might you elaborate on perhaps what it is the memorial might have to do to start putting some of those funds to use?
Sure. Elaine, correct me if I'm wrong, but the funding was $3.5 million this year and $3.5 million the next year. So it's a total of $7 million. And the Department of Public Safety, I think, is the department, to the governor decides which department of Economic Development, whatever department that's going to oversee the dispersal of the money. And so the Department of Public Safety will meet with the board of the wall, okay, and we'll explain to them, here's the paperwork we need, here's the information we need, and so forth. So it hasn't been that long, so I'm not surprised that they haven't received word, because the governor just signed it, and does it have to wait till August 28th? I think it has to wait till August 28th, and the department is you're in charge of overseeing this project. And so I know that the board has interest in another memorial statue. They are going to spend some money on marketing, because it's no good to have something if people out there don't know about it. And so we're going to spend some money marketing it across the country, as well as some projects like our reflective pool and so forth are on the drawing board. So did I answer your question?
I think, yeah.
Thanks for your question.
My name's Mike Teeter. I live here in St. Jan. I want to say thanks for protecting women's sports. I think that's important. Definitely protecting our children. I read a lot of articles about the transgender issue. So I'm trying to educate myself so I can have a reasonable discussion. But I also wanted to bring up something that I gave you paperwork for. Apparently there was a court ruling or something that showed that people who are forced to register because of a sexual offense conviction, even though they've done their time, petitioned to be removed from the registry, were approved to be removed by the courts. They may be required to be put back on the registry. My information's a little sketchy on that, but I have a real issue with putting people back on it if they've proven that they're not dangerous to society, because it takes a lot to get off of that registry. So I just wanted to bring that to your all's attention, because last count I had, and we've had trouble getting information from the Department of Public Safety at the state level. There's roughly 1 million people in this country on that list. I have talked to families who have had their children kicked out of school, because one of the parents is on it. So it's a very kind of charged issue, and I know it's politically probably not fun, but we shouldn't be destroying family for people who have proven to be rehabilitated. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for appreciating the bill on women's sports. It's kind of goes back to males are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and the majority of women just could not compete with that. And so years of competing against biological males would wipe out all of the stats and all of the things that women have improved in over the last 50 years. In regards to the registry as a sex offender in the state of Missouri, let's not guess about what the statutes say. Call my office, I'll give you a card, we'll find out exactly what the statutes say about it, and if you have concerns and so forth, you know, it would have to be addressed by the whole General Assembly, but it's a good question.
Yes, I was looking at the bill that you handed me, and it was introduced by Representative Hicks, and that's probably been several years ago, I would think. I served with him in the House.
Yeah, I know that's an old bill that I got.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's definitely old. Yeah, so, I mean, I didn't have a chance to sit here and read the bill, but, yeah.
I mean, the conversation I had, I was on a Zoom meeting last night, and I talked to another individual with an agency the day before, and that's when I got this information.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it's in place, if it's pending, but I just wanted to express my concern
Sure.
and my position.
Sure, thank you.
Just a quick question. My name's Bob Moylan. I live in St. Genevieve County now for about 4 years. Rick, you had put forward a bill concerning the next-gen mine operation in St. Genevieve. I know I went to that hearing for the committee, but not being a good civic person, I don't know where that bill went after committee. So if you could give me a short update on that.
For the audience, I introduced a bill that would stop the mining of the next gen. Mainly because of the voices that I'm hearing out of St. Genevieve County was over the concerns of water, over air quality, and so it passed out of committee. But then we in caucus, in other words, all the Republicans, I stood up in front of all the Republicans and said, "What do you think about this bill? We got a community that's crying, you know, it's too close. There's not enough buffer, you know, from the mine to the homes and so forth around there. We got Hawn State Park. Just I laid out all the details, you know, to the caucus, and we don't usually like to take votes, you know, in front of, you know, so we did a straw vote, and it was like 101 to 15 to not stop the mining. Let's not stop Missouri business. Let's support our business, because if this bill passed, then it'd be a blueprint for anyone else in the state, you know, to stop any business that they didn't want, you know, like a Menards. No, the lights are too bright. I couldn't sleep. I don't want Menards next to me. And so that's the reason why they did not want the bill to continue. And so it died right there. Now, I will give credit, as far as I know, Roger Faulkner and others are doing things like they mentioned a while ago. There's a sand plant, fracking sand plant at Brewer, about 3/10 of a mile from my home. And so they are doing third water air testing, they're doing third party water testing, and we get to see the test at the same time that Roger does. And so got a phone call about some dust one day, so I called Roger. He had people over there, you know, checking on this lady's black car that had white dust on it, and so come to find out it wasn't anything from the mine. It was blowing out of Beelman trucking, you know, down the street. And so, you know, I think, you know, some anxieties are high, and yet it's real that we need to protect, you know, our water and our air, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I just have maybe one or two questions. I kind of wanted to follow up on a little bit of what Adrian said, but I got a little heated, kind of want to turn the temperature down. So, but concerning, you know, abortion, Missouri, you know how it is right now, how he pointed out how, well, it is illegal. You can't go to a clinic and get an abortion. You can get abortive fashions and abort that way. I guess my issue is, yeah, I used to be pro-life, And I am still very much in favor of supporting life, but I no longer support the pro-life position because what I've found is that they've essentially created two types of people. They say they are pro-life and they want to bring it into abortion in Missouri, but then they make these incremental laws that still they don't go fast enough. And then a lot of times when you ask these people, you're like, do you support abortion cases of rape and incest? And their immediate go-to answer is yes, I do. And my question basically is, why do we treat certain classes of citizens as Luther mentioned? You know, like these people born in rape and cases of rape and incest. Are they not people? Are they not people worthy of life? I know many people who have survived the products of like rape and incest. I don't know them firsthand, but I know people who have survived those horrific attempts. And to me, when we support abortion in those instances, it's like telling them we don't think they're worthy of being alive. So you yourself said that some of the points he made were worthy of consideration. So I guess the difference between my position, why I support a bill like SB 356, and it's going to be coming back up in December, why I support it versus why some of these pro-life organizations don't support it. I don't know the answer to why this bill was defeated. I don't know what's going on with the pro-life organizations, but I do know that this is just my opinion, but it seems like these pro-life groups, they say they want to end abortion, but then they don't go far enough, and then they keep using it as a whipping boy. The next time they want to have money, they just say, hey, look, we're gonna end abortion in Missouri, we're gonna end abortion in Missouri, and they don't do it. So my question really is, when this bill comes back up for a vote in December, this bill has real teeth. It actually accomplishes justice for those who are guilty, those who knowingly commit the act of abortion, but also it protects those women who are trafficked, who are coerced into doing it. It protects them. No one who is for this bill wants innocent women to be punished. I don't. And I talked with our pastor, Brad, and he expressed the same concern that you do. And we had talked, because he had, in Louisiana, he had worked civilly on legislation, and he expressed the exact same concern you did. He's like, what if this bill actually harms women who are coerced? And I said, hey, I've read the bill. Like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a genius, but this bill seems really straightforward and provides those protections. So, given that, this bill does do all that when it comes back up in December, I don't see why there's any reason to oppose it. If it actually accomplishes what the pro-life movements want to do, then do it. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. I got a couple things here that I want the audience to know. It used to be when you got a sticker that you could put on your campaign sign, pro-life. That meant something. This pro-life organization we have now in the state of Missouri is not just about pro-life anymore. They have branched off over into, well, if you didn't vote for this tax bill over here, then we can't give you the pro-life endorsement. It is not the same organization as it was in 2016. Two, I just want you to know what the polling is. The polling in the state of Missouri is 60-40 in favor of rape and incest, allowing abortion for those two issues. So just so you know what what the state of Missouri is thinking overall.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Brian, you.
No, let us do it.
Okay.
First, go ahead, sir. Well, I'm not going to add to that issue. I didn't finish. No, go ahead.
My name is Wayne Grusling. I'm a resident of St. Genevieve. And my question is addressed to both of you, state representatives, Senator. Do you support the police?
Absolutely, 100%. My son-in-law is a sheriff, deputy here in St. John County, proud of me.
Okay, I'm a 9-year veteran of Chicago Police Department.
Whoa.
And
thank you.
When I ended this job, I started that one, so what can I say? The reason I bring it up is that there was a bill that was passed, and I don't know the number, involved open carry, that my understanding is at one point in time there was a stipulation in there that anybody under the age of 18 had to have a parent or an adult supervising them while they were carrying a weapon. And it's my understanding also, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that was removed from this bill, and the bill passed without that stipulation in it. So I'm wondering what you have against the police officers that have come across these kids in St. Louis, and I mean kids, with an AR-15 and literally can't do anything about it. I know if I was on the job, I'd turn right around and I'd drive the other way. Because if the kid did something stupid, like point the gun at me and I shot him, you know, the world would come to an end. It would be Michael Brown all over again. And I don't understand why the legislature, I don't think anybody cares about a kid with a .22 going out squirrel hunting, except maybe the conservation people. But walking down the streets in St. Louis with semi-automatic rifles and pistols and just wandering about, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And you're putting the policeman's life in danger. You're putting their lives in danger, and not only their lives, but their families too, because if he does take action and some court of law decides that his split-second decision was wrong, he gets sued, he goes to jail, his family is destroyed. You people are nuts for doing this kind of stuff because unintended consequences, they're there. You can't hire police people in St. Louis. Who wants to work in that environment? And you're not helping. You're not helping with your actions. You've gotten crazy with the guns. Totally nuts. That's all I have to
You know what,
say.
you've answered your own question, because that's the limit right there. None of us would be concerned about someone taking a gun out into the woods to hunt your 16, 17-year-old male or female. But should a 16, 17-year-old be able to walk around with a gun outside a police station? No. And so we're going to have to let our state laws let it go down into the counties and so forth to make those decisions. Good point.
While we're talking about law enforcement, I'm going to throw this one in. As far as I'm concerned, we literally have the best sheriff in the state. We have the best sheriff's department in the state. The professionalism of that group is just, and it's under Stokes, Sheriff Stokes. He has spent a lot of years putting this together. This is an organization, and I assure you, you know, commissioners, we get to hear things that the general public doesn't. We're not hiding stuff. It's just the way it is. But this county is blessed beyond belief to have that man as sheriff in office.
Very well said, Mark. Couldn't agree more. So yes. So my name is Brian Wolfen, county resident here. First and foremost, I'll try to keep it super brief. I think it's really important that you guys are doing this. I don't know if we understand this, but this is super rare to be able to have these kind of town hall meetings. So hopefully we can continue to have this really on a yearly basis. So thank you for putting this on. My question is more in regards to Senate Bill 190. As much as I know I'd love to give you guys a question, I don't, I'm sorry. So I know you guys have been hammered all night. But in regards to Senate Bill 190, Rick, or Elaine, whomever, I was more concerned about what your amendments were. You said earlier that you'd filed amendments. Obviously, they didn't make it through. I would assume going into the next session, you will also file those bills again. I wanted to see if you could not only elaborate on what you felt were, I guess, the bad parts of the bill and why they were bad, and then also what your amendments would do to fix those, because obviously in regards to tax relief, specifically for those on limited income and our senior citizens, I think it's important that we can get that done at the state level. And I say that as a citizen, not Brian Wolfen, for anyone who knows me, I hate taxes. So.
Yeah, good question. Let me dig a little deeper then. It wasn't so much the part where if you're over 65 and you're paying $1,000 a year on your property tax, and that moving forward, it would say $1,000 every year. It was the part that was in the details that said, and if there is money lost in those tax entities, because most of it goes to the school, I don't know, David, 70, 80% of the property tax. Those schools, there's another 20% that you got right for libraries, or maybe an ambulance, everything else, okay? And when there's a loss of money, currently, they can roll up their tax levy to recoup that. This bill was saying that you pay $1,000 a year, but it's going to go on the books as if you paid $1,100. It's what you would have paid, but that prohibited the other tax entities from rolling up and not losing money. That's a big part of why I could support it. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. What were, maybe an example of one of the amendments that you had that I assume you plan on filing? Was it to amend that specific portion of it? Okay.
Yes.
Could you specify like what that would be to make it up? Like what was your amendment?
To take out some language that allowed them to count it as if it was paid when it really wasn't. And it would look like, you brought in this much money, but you didn't, and therefore would prohibit, like school districts and so forth, from being able to roll it up. It's really going to be hurting those tax entities, and I do think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'm surprised something like that would be able to even get through on the bill. It doesn't make any sense. But that's the Missouri legislature, right? For you? So, no, I appreciate your time. That answers all my questions, so thank you.
You have to read and read and read, and you have to depend upon somebody else brought it to my attention. In fact, now I read it, and man, that's horrible. And I thought I had it fixed. I voted for it, for but I thought that my amendment would also fix the other part of 190 that was bad.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Brought up school taxes. I want to thank the citizens of the county for paying school taxes. Of course, I'm jaded. We have a tremendous school district. I want to thank you both again, as Mr. Genevieve pointed out, for voting to raise the foundation formula and fully fund transportation, which was at 17% a few years ago. So thank you very much. I just want to bring your attention. I know I've spoken to you both personally. This tax rate in St. John County, or specifically the St. John School District, could go down. Could go down to as low as $275 per $100 assessed valuation. It's currently at about $340. We have a taxing entity in town who continues to protest the taxes, and while that's with the State Tax Commission currently and not in your hands, I would ask that if it is found in the end that the Wholesome plant on the north end of town, which we all see as we drive north on 55 because it's humongous, is not real estate and turns out to be personal property, which we all pay personal property on our cars and four-wheelers and boats, but they're claiming their factory is personal property. If that is indeed decided that it's personal property, I would hope to have your support to somehow fix that situation, because that, in my book, I don't know if anybody else here agrees, is not personal property. If they can take their factory apart, bolt by bolt, move it, well, I can take my house apart, board by board, and move it also. So I just want to put it on the radar for all you guys and say, if you can help in any way, help, because there's going to be there's probably some officials in this building who can tell me this, but over $30 million sitting in escrow. 3/4 of that probably goes to the school district. We can get teachers. What's the number?
The number's right here.
The number right now that is sitting in escrow is $24 million.
The amount of money that's sitting in escrow account due to protests is $24,980,593.18.
So when 2022 taxes are paid, it's going to be $36 million. And I want to be clear, I have nothing against the folks who work at Wholesome and Mississippi Lime and Chem Lime. They are hard workers, good jobs, wonderful places to work. But that $36 million could lower everyone in this room's taxes. And I know you can't do anything about it right now, but if it comes time, I would greatly appreciate your help. Thank you both.
I just want to kind of add on to what David was saying and Karen. The other thing to keep in mind with all this too is if, and we pray it doesn't happen, but if the Missouri State Tax Commission were to rule in favor of Wholesome, rest assured, every similar business within the state of Missouri is watching, okay? And this will not only hurt us, it will hurt the entire state of Missouri, because if they rule in their favor, it sets the precedent, and then all of the other operations that are similar fashion to that, that'll happen. It would be devastating to us from a tax perspective. It's just all around a bad deal. It's been at the tax commission over 2 years now. Why that takes 2 years, I don't know, but there's litigation going, and that's all I can really say. But I just wanted to add that little piece to it.
Anyone else? There's a mic. Come on up. Ask a question. Come on down. You're the next contestant.
Hi there. My name's Helen Dorr, and I'm in Mark's district. And I'm a transplant. I've been in St. John County about 7 years now. Absolutely love it. But since I lived in the city of St. Louis, which I still love dearly, I don't understand why the Missouri legislature is so against allowing the city of St. Louis and the city of Kansas City to legislate gun laws. I just don't understand it. Down here, it's a different kind of world. People have guns, they're responsible, they teach their kids to be responsible with them, and there's a whole different lifestyle and world there. And it's not fair to the good people of those cities to live in fear all the time. That's all I'm going to say.
There's maybe a few good people in the city, but when it comes to the elected officials, they're scary. And we allowed St. Louis City to take over their own police department. Remember that? And look what happened to the city. We had to take it back over last year. So it is scary for us to turn over gun laws and so forth to the folks who are running St. Louis City. Just where I stand.
You already gave the guns out. You let every Tom, Dick, and Harry run around with the guns. And now you're going to try and fix the police department? You can't fix that. No, you can't fix the gun issue. Police department's fine. You're screwing it up with your laws.
Well, I'm going to add another piece to this. I don't want to throw gasoline on fire, but I'm gonna. Gun laws don't prohibit bad people from getting guns. And now we could sit here all night and argue semantics over it, but that's a fact. At the end of the day, it all boils down to consequences for bad behavior. We live in a society now where we justify bad behavior. We excuse it. And it starts when the kids are in school. And it goes up from there. And it has to do with prosecutors and how things are handled in the legal system. So until those things get fixed, you can pass laws till the end of time, and it's not going to fix the gun violence problem. The gun violence problem will get fixed when they start locking up the bad guys. You talk to our sheriff, and what will he tell you? He said, it's not that complicated. Lock the bad guys up. And, unfortunately, like the juvenile laws, it's a revolving door. They get pulled in, they're back out on the street the same day. So,
In the Democrat cities, it's that way.
well, Kenny, I don't want to get into Republican versus Democrat. We all know what party you're in and I'm in. I'm not going there, okay? But there's a mindset in the larger cities which tend to be more liberal in their thinking. There's a lack of consequences for bad behavior. And I'm going to stop talking at that point.
There's a little bit of a thing too, a corollary to that is a lot of times people want to get all over, well, we need new laws, or the laws aren't right, and etc. We have, in a lot of cases, a judge problem also. A lot of the issues that are dealt with are based upon bad case law, which is judges making bad rulings. And those sometimes influence things much more than people realize. That you've got one person actually, maybe since legislating times, deciding that this is going to be this way and that's going to be that way. Anybody else?
Somebody else has a question. I have a clarification, Rick. So you keep referencing in SB 190-65, mentioning it reads Social Security eligible. So is that part of the issue?
Yeah, that is part of the issue. Is the clarification that Randy was saying that is it 62? Is it 65? Is it 67 when you cite that? It's not clear.
So you don't know what the true idea behind it was. Was it just to be left up in the air for that reason, or
was it Tony Buchmeyer? And you'd have to get his brain to know what the intent was. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other takers? Guess I could be like the auctioneer start.
Open Zeros comes on in 30 minutes.
Don't matter, I'm too far away. I'm not going to be home in 30 minutes.
Just go to Kansas.
If not, going once, going twice. I call this meeting to an end. I really appreciate this crowd. I appreciate the turnout. It gives me kind of confidence in our citizenry that people are engaged and interested. Have a good night.